Hi guys, this is Jake at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today is the first Saturday of 2017, and we're going to take a look at a Ganzo today. This is the G710, so it's a knife that's been out for a while since they do their numbers in sequence, 710 being early in their 700 series. It's a really good feeling knife, good grip, good traction in the hand, a really nice grind on this knife, a Scandi kind of grind on it. Really good knife in a lot of ways. A knife that comes only in black. And yeah, it weighs a little bit, but it's got a good weight to it. I like my knives to have some substantial weight to them. Tip up, carry only, left, right, axis lock. If you're interested at all in this knife, let's get a little lens flare going onto the camera there. What do you think of that? Yeah, I've got a strong sunlight coming in from the side today. Hopefully the picture's going to look okay. If you're interested at all in this knife, stick around and we're going to do a full review of the Ganzo G710. All right, so there she is in all her beauty. Let's start off with a few little specs. We've got a cutting edge, so from the end of the sharpener's choil to the tip, 3.5 inches. Metric measurement on the screen. 8.25 inches for the entire knife. A roughly 4.5 inches for the handle. Right around 1/2 inch, a tiny bit over 1/2 inch for the thickness of the handle this way. And the thickness of the blade stock, 0.145 inches, which is 3.7 millimeters. That's a nice chunky blade that we have to play with. And a good size of a blade for that. It comes along quite a ways. A nice, heavy blade. It's a satin, which means with my oily hands, it shows up fingerprints pretty quick. It's got a nice Scandi grind that is about 2/3 of an inch. Yep, it's 5/8 roughly. High from the cutting edge to the end. Got a nice flat spot here if you got something to clamp on to do your sharpening. It's got that nice unique shape. This clip point on the end. A nice, I don't know, what do you call that? A little whoop, whoop, with a whoop swedge right here too. There you go. That angle, you can really see the differences on the different parts of the grind as I move the knife back and forth. Really, really nicely done. The final grind on the cutting edge is done very well. You can see that on this shot. Very well ground knife. I really like it a lot. The sharpener's choil right here helps you be able to get right to the end when you go to sharpen it. A lot of knives are not made that well right there, and that makes a big difference to me on how well the knife terminates right there. This knife is done very, very well that way. We've got an axis lock. We've got one bronze bushing washer, I should say, and one nylon one in this knife. We've got a pivot that works really, really well. This is a different pivot system than a lot of knives have in its construction. If you want to adjust this knife, and so that the blade centering, and the blade centering in this knife is notoriously challenging to get just right. I keep adjusting it, and I can get it good, I can get it to work, and I use the knife for a little while, and it's off. Right now, the lockup is nice and tight. There's no blade play, up or down, side to side, and yet it keeps creeping off to, in this orientation, to the left on the blade centering just slightly. And that's because inside the pivot, there's a bar that terminates with these two black screws. And that bar that's inside is shaped like this. So you've got your round bar, but then it's got one side that's flattened. So from the top, you can see it, how this side here is flat. So that keeps this bar from spinning. So when you tighten up the pivot screws on either side, the bar can slide a little bit from either side to the other, depending on how much you tighten it. So you can make this thing come a little bit off just by tightening one side too much. And then you can loosen the other side and keep going. And before you know it, if you're not careful, you'll have the entire pivot bar all the way to one side or all the way to the other side. So it's a bit tricky to adjust this thing so you got it balanced right in the middle so that the pivot works just the way it perfectly should. The way you can check that is you take the handle scales off, you center up this bar, and then you very carefully snug everything up just to, till it just barely starts tightening on both sides. Then you give each side equal amount of turns to get it just right. It's good enough for me. I'm really not that terribly concerned about blade centering being perfect as long as I have plenty of clearance on either side. And this knife always ends up with good clearance on either side. It's not perfect, but it's good. And so it flips back and forth really well for me. I've not had to adjust the springs on this axis lock. Some of Ganzo's early knives, and this is one of their early knives with the axis lock, had really strong springs on them that could stand to be loosened slightly. This one's an exception. It came out really well. No problem there at all. You've got G10 handle scales that are done really well. They took an awful lot of milling to get all these different lines milled out on them. You've got a nice texture here. And so you've got these milled out lines here and here, and they sort of angle forward from the top down to the forward, from the bottom up to the forward. It feels really good in the hand, and you get lots of good purchase, a lot of good grip in your hand. This last finger, this pinky choil is what I'm calling it right here. I'm not sure what it's really called. It actually does give your hand closing a lot of good purchase there. This knife is really good to grip any way you want. If you grip it this way, you've got your index finger in that choil, and that works really well. And you can hold it nice and tight that way. The color is pretty pink on here. My hands aren't that pink. Oh well, the rest of the color looks nice. When I take my hand out of the picture, it actually looks pretty good. So I don't know quite like, okay, I won't dwell on that. Pocket clip is nice and snug. My thinking is that this tip is bent up a little more than it should be. I'd rather have it bent down just a little bit so that the tip would be, down where the ball of that pen is. So just like a millimeter down would be nice, and the rest of it would be at the same spot that it is. In any case, it doesn't grip the pocket so much that it starts to tear apart my jeans or anything. It's just fine for that. No problem at all. Good grip. You've got just right around ½ inch of knife sticking out of your pocket. This black finish here isn't quite glossy, but it's not really matte either. So depending on how the light strikes it, sometimes it does, shine just a little bit, but not an awful lot. It'd be really easy just to sort of scuff that up with a Scotch-Brite pad or something to just sort of roughen it and buff that down just a little bit so it's not that bright. I haven't felt the need to do that. It's fine the way it is. All the hardware is black except for the axis lock. The liners are nice and heavy. The liners have this tiny bit of light jimping in there. Let's get focused here. There we go. Just a little bit of jimping in the thumb rise there. It does give a tiny bit of purchase, not much at all. It's not aggressive in any stretch at all. They could have left it totally alone, and I think you'd have the exact same amount of purchase as you do with it. So if you want more purchase, they should have made that a little bit more, but I don't think they needed more purchase. I think they could have had it left without that jimping at all. It doesn't really matter either one way or another. You've got open pillar construction, and you've got Ganzo's classic 3D pillars that have, those little steps on them. Looks really nice that way. There's no skeletonizing on those liners at all, and that helps keep the knife slightly weightier than some people like, but it's not too bad. Huge lanyard hole right there. You can fit any size lanyard you want. A front edge here looks really nice with this wave. They terminated it really well. All the edges are nicely rounded, so there's no sharp edges anywhere at all to be had on your hand, except for one right there, and that's where you want to have a sharp edge. and it is very nicely sharpened. This nice wide blade here makes it really good for doing close-up work if you're pushing down, because your thumb can really get good purchase there to push, to do a lot of hard cutting. I like the the styling and everything on it. Looks really nice, feels really nice, and it cuts well. You want to do some cut tests on this with this knife? Well, so do I. Let's get some paper. So we've got just some copy paper. It's not cutting super clean right now, but there's a reason for that. I have not touched up this knife at all since I got it, because when I did my testing with my fingertips, it felt like it was pretty good. Yeah, so it's a little bit rough. I'll show you something I've not shown in other videos. Sometimes I just take my leather strop and I do a little bit of stropping. Sometimes I take this out. This is our kitchen steel. And, I just take a couple quick little slides of the blade across this steel. All that does is true up the edge just a little bit. Some people call this thing a sharpening steel. It is not a sharpening steel. It is not a tool that sharpens your knife at all. All that it does is it takes this edge and it trues it up so that there's no little waves on it. It takes out all those waves and everything. So let's see if tuning up that edge helped at all. Look at that. So sometimes, a little bit of stropping is just the thing that you need. Sometimes a tiny little bit of using a blade steel is just what you need. I do both sort of. First one, then the next time I use it, need to tune up the edge, I do a strop, and then the next time I use that honing steel. Just to keep everything, tip-top shape. A lot of people sharpen their knives way more often than they need to. Usually, if your edge isn't performing perfectly, you just need to do a little touch-up, and 9 times out of 10, that's all that you need, and it makes it work, wonderfully compared to what it did before. I like this knife an awful lot. I really wish it came in a few more colors, but it doesn't, and so I've just got the one. And I'm not giving it away because I like it too much. So what do you think of this knife? If you like this video, please click on like, please share with your friends. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. And Ganzo just told me that they're going to be sending out some more free samples for me to review, so I'm looking forward to that. So pretty soon you're going to see an unboxing. I just got a tracking number for a package, so it should be here this next week. Can hardly wait. And I'll share that with you once it comes in. Remember, guys, always cut towards your chum and not your thumb.